Is your brand a wallflower or a firecracker? Do you whisper or shout? Today on Strategy Talks, we're getting loud about the power of opinionated brands. Stick around, it's going to be a great one.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Dorien Morin-van.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Strategy Talks. We're going to talk about a super interesting topic today. I have a fantastic guest, so I'm very excited that you're here. If you're here live, let us know if you're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, or on LinkedIn. If you're listening to this on the replay, feel free to put hashtag replay in the comments so that my guest and myself can see your comments and your questions. And last but not least, those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast, welcome. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring onto screen my guest today, Maya. How are you today, Maya?
Oh, great. Thanks. How are you?
Good. So we have a very interesting topic, and I dove into this in preparation for this interview today, the power of opinionated brands. Now, Maya, you are a B2B marketer, right? So in that crowded B2B landscape, standing out is crucial. Why is having a clear opinionated brand voice so powerful and so needed?
Well, it sets you apart from the rest. That's the short answer. I think we've learned by now that just shouting out what people can buy from you is not the way to go. So
Oh,
we're
really?
going on the just informative route, I think. And what we see is that a lot of brands just share information because they've learned that we shouldn't just say, "Come buy this with me." As a creep in the streets, but I think we took it too far, and the result of that is that everybody just shares the same information. It's just very informative. Did you know you could do this? I want to make your processes more efficient, optimize everything, the blah 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 type of content. And I believe that especially in B2B, it's important to stand out, to show a vision, to lead. Because if you want people to follow, I believe you should lead. And that's why it's important to not just be informative with your brand, but also have an opinion.
All right, so let's dive into that for a minute. I have a list of questions, but I heard you say something that I love. You need to stand out, and all that informative information is good information to have when you first meet and greet somebody, right? That's the know and like. But in order to get to trust somebody and then give them their money, they need something else. And that's what we're going to talk about, right? What else do they need? What do they need? What do we need to give as a B2B brand to move that needle? Is that what this is about? What makes you an opinionated brand if you do it right?
Yeah, and I think it might be the other way around because I strongly believe that you should have your opinion and your vision up front because it's a lot of we work for a lot of software companies and they target a lot of markets that are just tired of all the messages, all the information, all the things they have to do. They just see a lot of information on how it could be different and how their lives could be better. So I believe that in the beginning of the journey, let's call it that, you have to make sure that you get them moving, and you get them moving by making sure you tickle something within them. You have to show them we have to go somewhere. Let's move. Don't slack on anything because this is what's going to happen, and that's not informative. And I think that if you have them interested like that, then then you have to give them the information they need because you also have to build trust after that. So I think it might be the other way around, but that is what I mean. And to clarify with opinionated brands, I've had this question before. I don't mean that any random brand should have an opinion about politics or the war all around the world, or climate change or whatever, unless it's relevant to your brand. But it's an opinion on your market, on where you see things are headed, your vision on where people should go, the way you look at the way people are working right now and what they could do and where they could go, and be different on that. Not just be, okay, you can work more efficiently. Well, okay, thanks. Bye. Have a great day. So I think that is what we mean with opinionated brands.
Okay. And I have another question because I've run into this myself as a social media strategist, right? So I also have one client right now that is a software company, but I've worked in a lot of different industries. And one of the things that CEOs often, or the C-suite, tell us is they say, well, I looked at the competition, they're doing this, so we want to do this too, because that's the industry standard. And it just makes me cringe because I was like,
Right.
right, because they're doing all of that. If they go right, we want to go left. If they go left, we want to go right. We want to do it different from everybody else.
Yep.
But in that industry, that is just something that's ingrained. How do we get past that? How do you shake somebody up? How do you explain that to a CEO or C-suite and say, yeah, we need to look at the competition about what they're doing, and then we're going to not do that?
Right.
How do you get that message through, Maya? Because I think that's a big one.
Yeah, you're completely right, and that's why it's not happening across, well, the entire market. I believe that everyone is way too focused on what could go wrong if they stand out from the crowd, and I think we have to speak about what will go wrong if you do not stand out from the crowd. And I think people are just afraid to mess up, and we have to make sure that they're afraid to not, well, I don't know how to say it, but they have to be afraid of what will come if they do not speak up. Because if you do not speak up, people will follow someone else, and the risks of that are way bigger than maybe someone saying, okay, I don't like your vision, I don't like the way you speak up, I don't like your opinion. That's fine. We cannot work for everyone, but the risks of not doing so, of just blending in with everyone, and all the markets are becoming a red ocean, right? So you have to stand out in a way, and the risks of not standing out, of not voicing your opinion, are way bigger. And I think that is something we're not talking about enough.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I am lucky that the software company I'm working with, they are like, he actually, the CEO told me, I haven't even looked at my competition. I don't care what they're doing. I was like, yay, that's
Yay.
perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I told him I will look at your competition because I want to benchmark us what we're doing
Exactly.
against them.
Yeah.
But that's good because that means that you have no preconceived notions about our strategy and what we need to do. So I love that, and I appreciate you explaining that, what it means to be an opinionated brand. So how does that translate, right? So can you walk us a little bit, Maya, through the process of translating that brand's opinion, quote unquote, into that strategy? How do you attract the right buyers who resonate with your unique voice? How do you create the content? How do you know what do you start with? What's your process?
Well, what we start with is, I think, one step prior to that, because a lot of brands that I work with don't even know what their opinion is. And they think they have an opinion, but it's the same as the competition. And the opinion is always, you should use our product to have a better life. And it's boring because that is not an opinion. So what we do, we start from a demand generation perspective. We always start with a maturity model in which we map out the different phases of maturity your target audience might have when it comes to your product or service. So for example, if you have a next level AI tool that automates a process within let's say an accountancy, the accountancy market, we say, okay, what is your next level? So you have different maturity levels before they get to your level. You might even have the offices or the companies that still work with pen and paper or do everything manually. Then you have the companies that might work a little bit hybrid in the cloud, have some automated tools. Then a step further, they're completely in the cloud. They have their basics covered, but they're ready to take it to the next step. So we map out those maturity levels, and then we search for their sweet spot, because the example I just named, they should focus on the companies that have everything in the cloud, the basics. They're ready to take the next step. It's easier to work with them than the companies that are still pen to paper, because it's a way too big of a leap for them.
Mhm.
So first we focus on that. What types of companies do you want to help take which step? And then we zoom in on that and we say, okay, why do they have to take that step? What will happen if they don't? What do we believe? What do we see? What do we really want to do differently? What is going wrong in the market? Well, the opinion. Then we state that opinion. We call it the point of view, the POV, or we call it the opinionated brand. In Dutch, we call it merk met een mening. And then we try to map out all the themes that are related to that. We also map out a strategic narrative, where the opinion is also embedded in. So we say, okay, what problem do they have in the situation they're in now? What are they afraid of? That might be something if they're afraid of change, but there's also a pain they want to relieve. Who are we in their story? What can we offer them? How can we get them going? How can we create trust and empathy? And what is the promised land? Where are we going to take them on, guide them towards? And how can we make our buyer persona the hero in that story? So if we have that, we translate that to a messaging framework to answer your question.
Yeah, no, this
A little
is great. This is
route I
great. I
took.
mean, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you're a B2B brand, this is Maya is sharing a whole bunch of strategy, that with us on what the process looks like. And I know every strategist out there will have their own process. I've been doing this for strategy about 10 years, so I have my own process. But I just heard something. I heard you say something that I was like, "Ooh, that's that statement, that brand statement of what did you call it?" Um, oh no, I can't remember. I can't
The
recall it back. But
POV, the point of
yeah,
view. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So that writing that out so that everybody knows it. Because here's the other truth, guys. If you're listening to this, you as a marketer can have this whole strategy, but you also need to be able to present it to a company and have everybody at every level understand what you're doing and what you're going to do with it, especially all the way down to the marketing department, right? So those messages have to be super clear. So Maya, that's really amazing. So then from that, once you have the message, then you can work on a strategy for content and lead gen and all of that. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, what we do to add on that, we create a messaging framework, and where we go from problem unaware to brand aware. There are different phases within that. That's the demand generation theory. And we map out for every stage what is this starting situation from the buyer persona at that point. What do we want to achieve within this phase? What is our ammunition to make sure that we get them there? What is the proof we have? What is the opinion we want to present? But also, what are the questions they might have, because you don't want to just be the shouting brand when it's just shouting. You also want to be a trustworthy brand, create trust by just answering questions they might have. So we map that out for every phase. So we have the trust with the knowledge we can share, but also make sure we have the opinion we stated, working with that, and also making sure that it's just highly targeted on the strategic narrative, the sweet spot from your maturity model. And if you present that internally and you get all green lights on your plan and on your playbook, you don't have to go back for every article, every campaign, every social post, every ad, because someone is going to think, we all know this, oh, that might be a bit too outspoken. I'm worried that people might think this and this of me. So I just want to, it's a great idea, but just a little bit less and more vanilla and less this. And then there's nothing left of whatever you want to do. So if you have the playbook and you get everyone on board, management, everyone who has to say something about it, you can always grab that and say, okay, this is what we want to voice and this is the strategy. So the playbook for us is always a starting point when working with clients.
I love that. So you go in so much detail in your playbook as a
Yeah.
strategist that you don't have to go back and ask for every decision. Now, guys, if you're working in-house, this is really one of the biggest pain points that I hear about marketers that are in-house, that have to get, 2, 3 rounds of edits and approvals and all of that. But doing this work that Maya talks about as a B2B company, and, strategize all of these different pieces and putting it together into a playbook might actually save you time in the end. So I actually
Right.
love this that you brought this forward. And yeah, I'm living that right now where I've done the strategy for a client. I don't need approval for anything. I sometimes throw stuff at them and say, I'm thinking about using this meme. What do you think? And they're like, oh, it looks great. I literally
Yeah.
say, oh, it looks great, right? Because
Yeah.
they know I understand their value, their mission, their audience, the pain points, all of those things. So yeah, I love that you brought that out. So now, how can you strike that balance, right? So you've made the playbook, and you know kind of where you want to go with this opinionated brand. Where is the line? Do you draw a line? Does your team draw a line? Does the content marketer draw a line? Is there a line?
Well, it depends on what you call the line. Do you mean by with that how opinionated you can be?
Yeah. Is there anything that, you kind of hinted to it earlier, like no politics? Um, where's that line? Does it come from the company culture? Does it come from the C-suite? Does it come from you as a marketing company? You're like, we're not touching this.
Well, the opinion is about your market. So I think you shouldn't just think for everything that happens in the world, should we have an opinion on that? The opinionated brand is solely focused on your market and where it's headed. Be outspoken about your market. It's not about anywhere. Don't touch that. Because you're not informed enough. You don't want to touch things you're not. Why would you do that? Because you're not everyone wants to have an opinion on everything, and sometimes you don't have to. So I think you should stick to the plan and voice your opinion about what you want to voice your opinion about, which is your market and where it's headed. And I think the way you do that, because there are different forms, of course, you can tell your target audience. We have a customer, and they have a transport management system, and they completely believe that everything in transport should be fully connected and integrated. And their opinion is that if you have a transporting company and you're not fully integrating your company and the IT and applications, etc., your company won't exist in 5 years. You'll just be done.
Mhm, mhm.
That's quite an opinion, because that is a bit harsh, because if they
It's a
say
scary thing. That's a scary
it's a
thing too.
scary thing. Yeah, or you could say, even, are you still doing this? It's completely stupid, because you're working so hard to get it done, but you can do it with the half amount of time or whatever. So you could go like this, but if you have a little bit of more of a softer brand, it comes to brand identity as well. You can also state that, well, I think there's a roadmap you should begin on. We will help you through it. And if you don't do it, you will risk this and this. So the words you choose eventually for voicing your opinion truly comes from the brand identity. Are you
Okay.
a rebel brand? Are you an authoritative brand? Are you a caring brand? So there are some steps in the beginning you have to follow, where you can link everything.
Right. No, that makes sense. What I was kind of referring to as well, and as you were talking, it's like, okay, I've probably framed this question wrong. But for example, with trending things that are happening in the world, right? We want to, even as B2B, we want to make things fun. I went to the B2B forum in Boston last year. It's a great conference with Anne Handley, and her opening keynote, she had all these Barbies, these hidden Barbies. There were people in Barbie shirts in the audience, and it was interactive and fun, and it was all about B2B, and it just was lovely. So that worked, right? Even for a conference, but you can tie some of that, something that's trending into your content, having fun with it, right? And relating to people at their level. Because even though we know it's B2B, but it's still human to human, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, but then there was also a controversy I don't know if you read about it or if that was happening in the Netherlands, but there was a brand, and I saw this on LinkedIn, so it was really being discussed among social media managers. But there was a social media manager on the, uh, I think it was the Barbie brand, who had reposted something that a fan had posted, where that was Barbie and Oppenheimer. They did Barbieheimer, and they did an image, and it was a big mushroom cloud behind them, and it was right on the anniversary of um, the atomic bomb drop on Japan. So it was seen as super insensitive. You know, the brand got a lot of flack. That's kind of where I am. Like, that was kind of the you know, is trending stuff, is there a line there? Should we be careful as a B2B brand? Because I know some of the people that watch here are in-house marketers. A lot of them are B2B marketers. They might be worried about, you know, like, yeah, you get the freedom, yeah, you get the playbook, but now I got to play. How
Right.
far can I play?
Yeah, I think it also it comes down to, again, also the brand, because some brands are known for being outspoken, a little out there, a little bit controversial. So if that's your brand, go for it. If you have a different type of brand, you have to be more careful about that, of course. So there's not just one answer to that question. I think you really have to know, even before creating the opinion or mapping that out, make sure you have the brand in order. And I think that if you're an in-house marketer, then you work for a brand where you have a brand identity. And I also think, if you, when in doubt, just check, but don't be too shy, don't be too scared. I had a customer a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote this thing. It was about a new law in the Netherlands, and he was like, watch out for the cowboys that are trying to take advantage of people who are scared of that new legislation. And it took him 3 weeks because he was so scared to put it out there. He went viral. I think at this time he has 800 likes on his LinkedIn post. Normally he has 20 or something like that. He was too scared, because I said, if you truly believe this, if you truly want to protect people, if you truly feel this way, people might think differently, but that's okay, because that's where the opinion has value. That is also where you can meet your target audience. Do you want to really be across the table from someone who doesn't have the same values as you? No, you don't. So if you speak out on those topics, we have a customer that is truly passionate about doing more with less. They're in 3D printing, etc. I think there might come a time where we have to speak out on something climate change related or whatever. There might be some backlash from people who are feeling differently about that, but those are not his customers. Those are not his clients. And I think that is also, if you're everything to everybody, you're nothing to anybody. And I think that is so important to keep in mind.
All right, that's great. And it just brought me to another side question. You were talking about one of your customers, and he was on LinkedIn, and he was having this opinion, and he wrote this post. That's a thought leader who's probably either the CEO or C-suite of the company, maybe the owner, um, who develops. So then he has his voice. Then there's the B2B, there's the brand voice. How do these connect? How do you really dive into that voice? If somebody who's listening here who gets contracted by a B2B brand, maybe they're freelance and they have to figure out that voice. Do you have some tips for somebody to grab that voice? Is it looking over text? Is it analyzing things that are being said? How do we go about really honing in on that voice?
Yeah, so he didn't actually write that post. I did it for him. So the ghostwriting thing comes comes into play here, I believe. So I truly believe that someone, especially when it's the CEO or the owner of the company, should have the same feel to it, the same brand identity as the company, but with a human layer more to it. So what we do is of course, we speak to a lot of our clients, and that might be your client or maybe your boss or whoever. You know those words they use, you know how they speak. We have customers, they have like these little phrases that only they use, so we pick that up and translate that to their thought leadership posts. But also what strikes me most is that for people, it's the hardest thing to do for them is to write as if they're a person, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's also professional, business wise, and it's so hard to just try to write like a person. And I think if you can make sure that if you have your brand, you have your brand identity, you have your opinion, your point of view from the brand, if you can translate that into a person and give them a human voice, ghostwrite for them because they cannot do it themselves, trust me, you can be a bit more outspoken because that is the person and not the brand. It's quite a nice playing field to be able to sometimes be more informative and sometimes look how far you can go and maybe make it a bit more personal. So it's yeah, it's we do it like that. It's playing the field a bit with that.
That makes sense. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I wanna finish up this wonderful interview with a question for you on really where you see, this opinionated brand going. You're in the Netherlands, I'm in the US. I love the way you phrased it. I love the way your company is using it. I think there are definitely companies in the US who are using the same framework, strategy. I've used a lot of the components that I just never gave it a name of opinionated brands, but I love that. Where do you see that going, and how can we, you, me, marketers, anybody else who's listening to this, how can we shake up those B2B brands to say it's time? What
Yeah.
needs to happen? What do you see for the future of this?
Well, what needs to happen, like in the beginning of our conversation, we have to make sure that we have a good story to tell on why you have to do this and why it's scarier to not do it than it's scary to do it. Just sit down with the people you're working with, create the point of view, make sure that they do not leave the room unless you have something you can work from, and then start doing it. Because if more brands are going to do that, the other brands will have to follow, and they will see the success of it because we see it immensely. The difference with just informative content versus the mix with that and opinionated content, it's massive. People are getting asked on podcast as speaker or whatever, so you have to experience it to see the benefits. And if there have to be some people to start and others will follow because they will see the benefits of it, and just go for it. Because we all feel like in business we have to be so vanilla, we have to be so polite and so professional, and it's not like that at all. So I think we have to find some like-minded people, go for it, show the world that it works better than just the boring way. That's my opinion. The
Yeah,
rest is doing it, and get started with it. I think it's the only way. And then, because like I said, if you want people to follow, you have to lead. So if you're inspired, just go for it and people will follow you.
I love that. So as the ROI you just mentioned, they're seeing results. I'm assuming they're seeing results in sales and revenue. They're seeing results in thought leaders being asked to speak in podcasts. Are there any other ways that you can measure or show the success of this strategy?
Well, what we see, we have a business recognition tool. I don't know. In Holland we have Lead Info. I don't know what it's in the States. But if you see, if you recognize more companies within your sweet spot in the maturity model coming to your website, you know you're voicing the right opinion, you're sharing the right content. You can see a shortage of your sales cycle, so the pipeline velocity, as we call it in demand generation. So you need less time to make a sale. Those are the things that you will see, and you will, of course, it's combined with everything, right? It's not just this, like what is a brand worth, but the combination. Yeah, we can see different results on different levels.
That's awesome. Maya, this was super interesting. I hope that lots of people listen to this podcast, watch this interview. I'll make sure to share it. And it's super fascinating. I love talking strategy. And this is like strategy talks. This is a great strategy talk that we had today. I appreciate you. Where can people find you online, whether they're in the US or in the Netherlands and they want to meet you and they want to talk to you more about this or invite you on their podcast? How can they best connect with you and where?
My fellow Dutchies can go to oppepper.nl. I don't think the fellow Americans cannot understand anything that's on that. And people can find me on linkedin.com/Maya Noordam. Feel free to connect, reach out, and I love to talk about this.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for those of you that stayed all the way to the end. Thank you for listening to our podcasters. And I'll be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. Thank you so much, Maya. And we'll see you all
Thank you
later.
so much.
Bye, everybody.